Welcome to the Powered by Age-Friendly City Zoomcast reality-style podcast.
We are movers and shakers, shaking up the old notion of silent, helpless, invisible seniors.
This is a new series of podcasts funded by the City of Vancouver and the 411 Senior Center Society.
As PBA AFC ambassadors, we
raise awareness,
share our original stories and poems,
inform, advocate, and involve seniors in discussing important social issues.
In short, these podcasts will help us,
you, in creating an age-friendly city for Vancouver today,
tomorrow the world.
You can hear us everywhere podcasts are heard. Hello and welcome to Powered by Age, a senior-led podcast here in the city of Vancouver. I'm Charlotte Ferrell, the host, and today we are doing something exciting. Last week we announced that we're going to have a contest, and it's a contest to build Canada's largest reservoir of interviews with people that you find interesting or notable. And we are learning how to do this, and we have three people today who took on the challenge last week and made an interview. As we go through discussing it during our program, you might hear tips that we're giving and feedback or questions so that you who are in our listening audience or other members of our podcast program will be able to listen to this podcast and get further inspiration on doing their own. What we usually do at the beginning is just have each person that's on the line give a brief 15 seconds of fame introduction, and then we will go on to present and listen to the interviews we have. Today, we have with us one of our tech gurus, Joel Flynn, who is one of the people who helped with getting the Powered by Age podcast started. So you'll hear his voice coming in and giving tips to the people that are present here, as well as those of you who are listening. So we'll start with Leslie.
Yeah, I'm Leslie Hebert. I live in New Westminster, and I am an English as a second language teacher and a writer. I'm also a member of the New Westminster Council of Women, which is where I found the participant for my interview today, which is a group of women in New Westminster who are involved in various social issues.
Okay. Neall? Unmute yourself. Okay.
No, he's okay. He's not muted, I don't think.
There we go. Unmute. Ta-da! My name is Neall Ryon, and I live in Burnaby, British Columbia, right next door to Vancouver. And I'm a student. And at this moment, I'm learning about podcasts and interviews and all kinds of new things. And happy camper. I have an interview. I made one. I did one this morning.
And we'll be listening to it. Okay, good. Chris?
Hi, my name's Chris Morrisey, and I live in East Van, and I participate in the Britannia Senior Center. And excuse me for the sounds. I'm currently in Holy Family Hospital in rehab, so there's a little bit of a distraction here today. So I'm currently a member of Quirky, the Queer Imaging and Writing Collective for Elders, and I'm currently confined to my room because there's some issue here that the place is dealing with, not to be mentioned, not to be named yet. You can do your own guessing. And I did an interview as well with a friend of mine who's Barbara Findlay, who's a QC, who's a lawyer, who recently was given an award by the BC branch of the Canadian Bar Association.
Okay. Nansy.
Hello.
Mute yourself. Yeah, there we are.
I'm Nansy Sinclaire, and I live on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo, beautiful British Columbia. And I'm really excited to listen to these interviews, actually. I'm just starting a travel segment show, Travel Shout Out, in another group that I'm involved with, which will be interviewing people around traveling and places that inspire them in their own hometowns. So that's me, and I look forward to entering the contest as well. Thank you so much.
Nancy likes taking pictures and doing interviews, so I'm sure as we go along with this interview rollout, she'll have some maybe related to her travel show. Joel?
Am I on mute? No, I'm talking. Yeah. I'm Joel, and I work with Podstream Studios down on the second floor of 333 Terminal Avenue. Currently, I'm not there. I'm still in good old Campbell River, where it is a beautiful day. And I am working on a PhD right now, kind of related to some of the stuff we're doing here in terms of audio information and how we consume things through here and what we need to be aware of, especially with all this disinformation going around. So how do we know what we're listening to is good? How do we check references? How do we understand that it's not fake? And all this social media pollution that is causing concerns that I was railing about years ago, and they didn't listen. Now we got problems, so we gotta step it up and make sure that people aren't consuming garbage. So that's what I'm here to prevent, hopefully.
And I'm a story elicitor, so I am here to elicit your stories. I'm also a talker. My grandmother wrote my mother a letter when she was taking care of me, and she said, "Lord, this child talks so much." So I enjoy talking as a radio show host, and then with all of you as we are just emerging to have many others who are able to use this power of interviewing for bringing right information, entertaining information, and inspiring others to do the same. So today we are sharing a few interviews that people were brave enough to try and do. And through you hearing the interviews, we'll also be giving you some tips or inspiration for interviews you might want to use your personal Zoom room to do. So can
I make a qualification?
Yes.
I did not mean that I'm here to listen to your garbage and making sure that it's not garbage. I meant the news stuff coming in, but I know as soon as Charlotte said, "Well, we got some stories," and I went, "Oh." So anyway, back we go.
Okay. All right, Leslie.
So while you're looking around, I didn't actually introduce my interviewee properly on the interview. It was just kind of an off-the-cuff thing. But it's an interview with Angela Seeley, who is the owner of the West Coast Facilitators Group. She is a dialogue specialist, so she tries to get people involved in conversations around pertinent topics. So she's a very interesting person.
Okay, and I will share that now.
We have some radio silence here. I actually did this interview quite late last night after a meeting that I'd had with the New Westminster Council of Women, and I just put it out there. Would anybody like to do an interview with me? And it was Angela that volunteered. So it was kind of an off-the-cuff, quite unprepared interview.
I don't know what happened. It was flashing like someone was in the waiting room, and I went to check the waiting room, and I think I cut off the video, the audio.
Did you?
I just have to see if I have to put that into Audacity or something else before playing it. But this is Chris's interview. Are you sharing? This is Chris's interview. Are you sharing that?
I'm not. Chris is.
Oh.
Yes, I'm sharing it, but I don't know how it happened.
I don't either.
Well, let's go with it. Let's just go with it.
These are just things the bugs that we'll work out as we are playing them live within the podcast.
I was looking for my Google Drive and I found it.
Okay.
Can you press play and let's see if it's working?
Canada Bars, the BC branch of the Canadian Bar Association, with
That's it there. We can hear it.
For a lifetime of work.
Chris, can you share your screen?
And the changes that she has managed to make for all of us since one, in the sense that those rights are now, thanks to you primarily. Can you hear anything now?
Very
Enshrined
faint.
of the immigration. There's no question about it anymore. Back in those days,
Yes.
lesbians and gay men were not covered at all by family law. So, for example, if you were a lesbian and you and your partner had a child together and broke up, the non-biological mom had no even standing. She was regarded as a roommate, and she couldn't get rights to see her child. And 25% of the laws of British Columbia explicitly discriminated against same-sex families. At that Outrise conference, we actually had a meeting in which a bunch of lawyers sitting around and to talk about this question: do we want to be in the family law? Because we knew that family law was a sexist, patriarchal institution that had been terrible for women. Why were we opting in exactly? But we concluded that we couldn't afford to be out of the family law system, that we would be in the wilderness. We would continue in the wilderness, and that it was important to be visible. And so, for example, one of the challenges I took was a challenge that Vital Statistics Agency used to do this. If you sent in an application to register a birth and you had a girl name and a boy name in the parent slots, they just sent you a birth certificate. No inquiry about, who the boy was or any of that sort of stuff. Just on the other hand, if you send in an application that had two girl names on it, then they sent it back and said, sorry, we don't register same sex. So it could have been Anne and Chris. Sure. And exactly. There were some, actually one of the clients in the case I'm going to tell you about, considered doing exactly that, filing their application under their middle name, which was in fact ambiguous as to gender. But we took a human rights case and we said that's discrimination. You're not making any inquiries about genetic connection. You're just registering two people who show up on the birth certificate. And if that's how you're doing it, folks, then you got to register these two people on the birth certificate also. And we were successful, making us the first jurisdiction in the world to permit two lesbian moms to be on the birth certificate. That's amazing. Yeah. Another really amazing and interesting case is it's now quite a famous case called Kimberly Nixon and the Vancouver Rape Relief Society. Kimberly was that definitely was a huge case, and I know that you and Kimberly spent many hours, months and years working on this. I remember seeing you sweating. Yes, I would see Kimberly coming to your office quite frequently. Yes. So carry on. Kimberly was a transsexual woman, as that was I used that term because that's the term that was used back in those days. That term is out of favor now because it's considered a slur. But that meant that Kimberly had. So I paused it because I'm not sure we want to continue on listening to this. I thought maybe now I've found it and it's there on the screen. What do I do with it now to send it to you or to?
I think because it's a large file and it's in your Google Drive.
Yes.
So you can share it to the Powered by Age Google Drive. Okay, so now I want to ask you all a question. What we did with some of the interviews people did initially when they were using their phones or different things on a Tuesday or one of the other days, we took it and worked with it a bit in the editing software. There's some places there that I don't know whether we could amplify or clarify just working with it in Audacity or Audible. But the topic, as Leslie suggested, that might be a good topic for one of our week's presentations. The week of the 13th, which is the second weekend in February, is the Monday or the Sunday is Valentine's Day. And sometimes we have on our show talked about something when there was a holiday coming up. I wanted to have a discussion around relationships, friendships, sensuality, and sexuality. So this half an hour might be a good, or I'm asking you, what do you think of having that interview as something that we would listen to and have a topic of, part of our discussion on the second Thursday in February, which is the 11th. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to suggest that we don't do that, that what you're talking about is something that I think is, what's in this video is a historical thing in terms of rights and legislation. What you're talking about is something much more human, in terms of our relationships. There's some legal aspect to it, but that's not necessarily the meat of what we would want to be talking about, I think, on that day. I'd sooner be talking about my relationship with Bridget, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought.
Joel, you're a systems thinker. What do you think?
Just you repeat it again so I can systems brain it. What's the question?
Should we make this just its own, like a topic for, we're now in this interim between when we go to 3.0, when we get our, funding for expanded promotion about PBA, etc. Right now, February and March, we're exploring topics. We're exploring presentation. We are eliciting people with interviews so we can make the topics for each week whatever we want. So right. I'm asking, should we make that presentation something for one of the discussions for one of our weeks in February or March?
Which presentation specifically? The one that was
her interview is a half an hour.
Yeah, you'd have to find bits of it to present. I think it's unless it's something that it's hard to have a video that long on these types of things. So you have to go through the video and find key moments to then talk about, rather than just play the whole half hour, because you'll lose your audience with anything over, I don't know, like a minute now. Everyone just has short attention. Mm-hmm. So I would look for little spots to play and then have the link to the file available for somebody to watch the whole thing.
Okay, so, right now we had 10 on Tuesdays, but that's not a date that's locked in time. So I could talk with Chris around the time that, could individually work with you on putting in some ways to break it up with bullet points or discussion points. But I would talk with you and set up a date when we could do that. What do other people think in terms of what you'd like? Are there other points that you'd like to put into a discussion on of the type that Chris has suggested, or do you think that that's by itself is enough for the top for our
here's a meeting? Question is when is this being planned for?
Well, I'm planning stuff for February, so I don't know whether it's too soon for the 4th, but one of the Thursdays in February.
I have something I'm working on that I would be interested in applying to what you were talking about there with Chris's video. It's just not ready to go yet. But if you want to push it off a little further, I might be able to have something I can show. Like what I'm trying to do is create a workflow system that makes it easier to take a Zoom meeting that's in video and find those key parts and then export those key parts into something that we can all collaborate on and move the little clips into a nice order that tells a story. I'm not there with it yet, but I have kind of the pieces to do it. And an example like Chris's video, it's a half hour long. You go, okay, well, I got to find those key moments and put them in this space that's more visual that we can play around with where something is being said and where you want a transition to happen. It's just, it's a perfect example for what I'm trying to do. I'm just not there with it yet.
Okay, and it's a perfect example of what we do with the workshops or trainings that we have on a day different from Thursday. So it would just be a matter of finding out with Chris what's a better day and time. So we can do that and, be able to work toward maybe presenting it by the third week in February.
Steve, my challenge, I was hoping to be able to do the Tuesday one, but given my Tuesday is our quirky day, so and plus at 10 o'clock I have occupational therapy, physiotherapy.
But we don't have a problem with changing the date because it's,
It almost needs to be in the afternoon for me. Unless it's on a weekend.
Okay. Let's get Neal's interview in to our podcast. We will now have Neall Ryon opening and sharing his interview.
Well, let's try share screen. Let's try media player. Good morning, and what's your name, young man?
Benjamin.
Hi, Ben. Okay, I have no video.
Oh, don't worry about the video. I mean, maybe it's just preferring to show the audio. I don't know.
Well, we don't need the video, right?
Right. No.
I got lots of video. Lots of sound. I got no video.
Don't worry about the video. Just play the sound.
There's videos, Benjamin. I understand you just had a test for COVID.
Yeah.
What did they do?
They put a weird stick up my nose and it went really far up, so it made my eye water.
Cool. And it was a negative test, so you're very healthy, eh?
Yeah.
I hope I'm recording. Yeah. It says I'm recording. So, and you're working from home?
Yeah.
Do you remember Michelle from last Christmas?
Yeah.
Michelle is working from home.
Cool.
So, how's that going for you? Are you still learning? I know you really like school.
Yeah.
And that's a mean-looking chair you're sitting in. Is that a special?
It's a gaming chair.
It's a what?
Gaming chair.
Okay. And what would you like to tell the people at Simon Fraser University about Ontario?
It's cold.
It's cold. Okay, well, it's cold here, but not quite as cold. So I got a busy day today, so I'm gonna cut it short. But everything is okay in Ontario at home?
Yeah.
I like your sweater.
Thank you.
Okay, nice to chat with you again. It seems like we're not going to be in Ontario I'm not going to be in Ontario for a little while, so maybe next year you and your dad are going to come out here.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and go skiing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for taking my Zoom call.
You're welcome.
And I'll let you know how it goes, how it gets my interview of Benjamin, how that works out. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. That, by the way, is my grandson.
How old is Benjamin?
He is 8.
Okay.
I had no time to prepare for that interview because I talked to my son this morning at 7:30 and asked him if Benjamin was available, and he emailed me. So Benjamin will be 8 years old in the early April.
Okay, so he's still 7. Okay. 7, almost 8.
So that was just set up this morning, and I didn't have a target, and I have had one hell of a week, I tell you. So I was very lucky that Benjamin was working from home because all the schools in Ontario were closed, and I was able to connect with my son, who set it up for me.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. One thing I noticed, though, if I could give you a bit of feedback, Neall, on the interview, it's better to ask open-ended questions rather than ones where the answer is just yes or no. And then that gives the person an opportunity to say more. So, we call these the WH questions, like, what have you been doing? What have you been up to? What happened today? That kind of thing.
Like how you mean, like how I asked him about the COVID test.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Just as a total aside, as a market researcher, asked probably hundreds, if not more than that. And also when I did my radio show, I would interview jazz musicians and so forth. So I'm quite comfortable in that space. But interestingly, to an 8-year-old is not my most comfortable interview. I don't know what to say.
I think he didn't know what to say either lots of times. It felt a little awkward for both of you.
Yeah. And also, I had absolutely zero prep time. But I knew that he and my son were tested on Monday because Benjamin had been out and come home. Mark is a single parent, but he shares Benjamin with Benjamin's mother. So he had just come home from there and was not feeling well. So they went and did a test.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to bring any family business involved. So
well, yeah, that's another thing, right? So.
Okay, well, anyway. I think it was great that you did that with the short time because kind of the purpose for this was to fulfill one of the goals that was set by PBA when we were physically meeting in that building where Joel has a PodStream studio. One of the goals for PBA was just share information, to have senior-led conversations around topics people had of priority. And we've covered a lot of those, walkability, seniors who work, how people make money, different laws for different things, poverty, ways that we could get involved. The second was building capacity. So each of you, well, about 15 people got certificates in November, December as peer leaders who have basically learned how to get on Zoom, have either facilitated special parts, components of presentations. And so now the one thing that was a goal was to build the largest reservoir of stories. In the States, there's a program called Storycorps. And at the time when you all got a physical handbook, workbook, there was some pages in there, questions from Storycorps, because Storycorps is a volunteer organization in the States. They've collected more than 2,000 interviews with people where they just have people get an interview. They were using a phone app, so the questions were on an app, and they would just go through and do a half an hour to 45-minute interview with the person and send it on to this organization that then would put it in the Library of Congress. Well, I attended their interview, and they said, "You're welcome to do this and create a reservoir group in Canada, but the U.S. group isn't putting anything but American interviewee stories into our reservoir." So I talked with Leslie about that a little bit, and someone with the Vancouver Library, and they said, yes, if the 411 Center, our drive, which has got a huge amount of space, is the interim reservoir for these interviews, at some point we'll be turning them over to library systems throughout, the whole country. But the first step was just to get going, to make it fun, to not get into all the techniques of, you were 2 minutes over, it was 2 minutes under, or you should have talked to a dog, or you should have talked to a parrot. It's just to get people talking with someone and learning that the Zoom app that you have, that everybody that's downloaded Zoom does have a personal room. And so then with the next level is, because Zoom has done something different. When you record when it comes onto your computer, it gives you 4 files. It gives you 2 video files. It gives you a chat file. It gives you an audio file. And if you stopped and started over any times, it gives you those other audio files. So,
Charlotte, I want to finish with my conversation with Leslie, because Leslie, I want to honor you that you said something, and I appreciate that you said something. And I just want to respond. I don't want to take away what you, I'm sorry, I don't want to refute what you had to say. I just want to say I'm as awkward as can be with an 8-year-old son. Grandson.
I just think it was great that you did the interview. It was a first for you. It's always a learning experience, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I know, and from it, from your comments, I take away the fact I need prep time. Mm-hmm. I thought, because I've done so many interviews. In fact, I've done focus groups with 10 to 15 people in the room, and come away from there really feeling good about my interview skill. But even when I met with my grandson back in Christmas last year, not a year ago Christmas, is that I can remember that, it's been a long time since I raised kids. Yeah. My son's 52 now, so thank you, Leslie. I didn't want to step on what you said. I really wanted to honor you, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and kudos to you, Neall, for doing that. Right.
Yeah, I want to say kudos to each of you for doing that, because it was like, just get started. And so you were brave enough to get started. And from the getting started, then we've been able to learn more of the technical things. And to let you know, separate from our podcast time, we will arrange times, whether, a different day from what we now have, to work further with either what someone has or to go to the next level. With Joel and what he's discussing, because everyone does also get the option for a video feed. There's some things he's learned that you can do when you're working with video. It's easier to spot places that you could make breaks, or you could, that you could add things. So that's one of our goals, is to go to the next level. We don't share here. I get an audio of every program, but I don't share it because we haven't in advance asked people for their permission to show their video. As we move to another level, one of the things we want to do in this February to March time is have a YouTube. With Zoom, there's a capacity to do live to Facebook or live to YouTube. We have a YouTube station. There are more things that we can do if we do put some sessions on that have video, because now there's a transcript over to the audio of it. But one of the ways that will just help with sharing the word, sharing the research, everyone does. Every one of you who at any time has brought a poem, done a story, interviewed, invited a guest, have helped provide something that goes out to the larger community. But we're looking right now as a center around what type of privacy things, what things would we have people sign if we want to use the audio version of what they've recorded. So we'll be checking with you, each of you, about a time that like Robin will be doing some workshops on interview skills. There are some different things and ways of doing interviews that are long interviews. There's some things that the radio station uses around inflection, voice, reading back and forth. So those will be things that will be offered to this group at a time separate from our Thursday group. And so it's another kind of buy-in for people that you recruit that, like you said, I wasn't prepared. You don't have to be prepared. You had the spirit. So that's a wonderful thing that you had the spirit. And then with what Chris did, because it indicated an area where there are some legal things we hadn't thought of, that's something that might be a good program for the future, because we're always looking for program topics that come from the podcast participants. What things are you interested in? What things do you know about? What things can you bring to the table? So Joel will find out between you and Chris what's a good date for you to begin working with her with that process. And then if anyone else wants to look at the process, we can make that time slot, open to do it. But it's not something we'll be sending out on the calendar to everyone. We have this day. It'll be kind of personalized around specific people, programs that we're working on, and then we'll build toward how that could be something new, because we are merging as a group. And I don't. You said 3.0, Joe, but I think we're going to 5. Everything is 5, G5. So I think we're going from 2.0 to 5.0. We're just going to 5.
Skip the 4. Go to H5.
Around the thing of topics, and as we're planning topics for upcoming weeks, are there any particular topics that any of you are interested in making sure that we cover, or that you might even want to invite a guest or be the facilitator for?
I have an idea that I would like to do an interview with the guy who manages the Minion, the Minions, the little yellow minions from Despicable Me, from the movie. I want to interview him about how to go about getting the minions. Like, I can add the words because I got Photoshop, but I don't know where to get so I'd like to maybe get the guy that manages it to see if, I don't know if it's a guy or it's a woman, but anyway,
they're probably copyrighted, right?
But he's talking about the person that did it. I mean, who created it.
No, I'm talking about the website, the Facebook Minions that has every week I get at least 10 minion things, and each one says one like the one that I really like is that having an all-nighter is meaning I don't have to get up and go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
In-ear memes.
I bought the program Toonly, which is a program that people can use to make their own characters and cartoons. I can show you that. I don't know whether it's the same thing, but, Joel, you could put your antenna out to see how would we find the person that created that program, and if that's somebody that we could interview.
Tooley's the like storyboarding type of visualizing makes?
No, Toonly makes cartoons. It's actually a
Oh, yeah.
software that lets you create. It gives you a toolbox of characters. It gives you locations, and you can create those kind of cartoons of your own.
Right.
But Neall is talking about something else, which is Minions, which is different from.
Right.
It's the little things that are like the Minions
On the actual
movie.
characters in the movie, yeah.
Yeah. Any other topic?
I love the Minions. I love the Minions. They I love the rebelliousness of the character.
Yeah, it's like the creator for Charlie Brown. You'd have to find the Charles Schultz owned that character, and nobody else could use it. So to find out who owns Minions, we just have to do some research. And Leslie is a researcher, and Cynthia.
Sometimes.
Cynthia Sharp works as a librarian, and I think you have another friend, Nefertiti, works for a library. So they
Does
might
she?
also
I didn't know that. Yeah.
be able to find out who's the owner and who's their publicist. How do we get an interview with them?
I just noticed it's 1:15 and I have to run. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Bye. I just have an idea here, Charlotte, quickly before we finish. When you were talking about getting these recordings together in some kind of a podcast reservoir, museums very often are collecting oral histories as well. So I was thinking perhaps a session with somebody from a museum about oral history and the importance of it.
Okay.
So I could maybe contact somebody at the New Westminster Museum and Archives on that.
Okay, and that also fits in activities, places to go, because the museums, we're using safe distancing and having some things where people could do a walkabout. So as we are talking about what else can we offer people besides sitting in front of a screen, you might also ask them if there's a way that people could, meet and go on a walkabout at the museum.
Well, I got to go, so I'm going to drop out. Nancy, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Well, thank you.
See you, Leslie. Bye-bye. Love you, darling. Bye, Charlotte.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Nancy, we were talking about ideas for February and March for topics for shows, because we usually, in the past, we've had a topic and people have, signed on if they were just interested in hearing that topic, or if people were interested in being part of pulling it together, doing the research, etc. for it. I've been seeing on Czech TV, there's so many fascinating things that they show about Nanaimo. People seem to be working and collecting. Is there something that you could think of that might be a good topic to present, and where we might pull in other seniors from that area who want to present either a topic or
I'll have to give that some thought. That's a good idea.
And then maybe you could explain to Leslie the idea of what you're working on with the travelogue.
Oh yeah, the travel segment. Travel. Nancy's travel shout out. So with the whole idea is that no one's able to. Well, they shouldn't be traveling right now with this all continuing on, but people are reaching into community, to develop friendships and support and inspiration, that kind of stuff. And so I had this idea of interviewing people about where they live and sharing, what is it that they're proud of their city? What are the off the track sort of things that you can share about where you live? And just, to inspire people and get them excited and or maybe that's been a place that they've traveled to that really inspired them. And so to have something fun to do, have some adventure around it, something to look forward to down the road, or share common things, or, like this is, you wouldn't believe what we do here in this city, or even if people have, like, say, been born and raised in that community, in that home, even in the same physical house, say, as their grandparents or something. So some family heritage, some cultural things, and really for the point of connecting people, just really bringing people together. And then with the idea, because we had a meeting about it yesterday, and and the idea of what it could expand into. So once we can safely start traveling again, maybe people will develop friendships, and we could end up building retreats. People could travel and do a visit with each other and do some sort of retreat or vacation or exchange homes or, who knows what, right? But the possibilities and just globally to get to know one another and develop friendships and stuff. And so that's what we're working on.
Okay. Well, I think that one thing that really connects well with our podcast is I have a great longing to go to Nanaimo, but there are people that have lived in Canada a long time or Vancouver a long time, and they've never gone over to the islands. So I think maybe demystifying the islands, that maybe with your camera or video, you could have some things that would help, interview someone, but we could see the pictures, because we do have a goal during this 8 weeks where we're testing different things of using live to Facebook or live to YouTube. So if it were a photo show, people can see it, because what you've done in the interview, everybody can see, rather than it just being the people that are on the podcast. So maybe you could just, think about.
I will actually. That's a great idea.
And I've seen that, and maybe if you could interview someone from Czech. Leslie, are you familiar with Czech TV?
I know the name.
Yeah, I watch it quite often because they, one, because I'm interested in going over to the islands, but the other thing is the employees own it. And so I think that would be a good story for a podcast, because we've talked about how do older people earn money. Well, quite a number of the people who were in Czech were there when they were in their 20s and 30s, but they're still there. There are people that are among the people that own Czech. So if it's possible for you to nose around with Czech and see if they could be a guest and talk about that story of cooperation, because we've explored what's there in the future. A number of people within our group are writers or poets, but how do we collect? So I think that story of a cooperative would be really good, and and that could be one that we would do, either stream live to Facebook or live to YouTube.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll make some notes. I'll start checking it out. I'll check out Czech.
Check on Czech, yes.
I didn't know they were a co-op. No idea.
Well, it's company owned. They bought it collectively, so I think it's a co-op structure. But Canada is phenomenal in its co-ops. There's a dairy co-op. There's some farmers co-ops, but I don't think people really understand it. The mucky media that doesn't give more than 30 sound bites, somehow they've been associated with socialism or socialist things. So I think to really understand, that would be one stepping stone to getting into what's happened with co-ops, and also a possible way that some of the people within our group, might be able to work together as a co-op, for their creative work, marketing and selling their creative work, because that's been an in and out theme. How do seniors earn money? How do we and not have to do dog sitting or cat sitting when we have all these skills, or look for a publisher. So I think the Czech story might be really inspirational to show things that we might do.
Some really good points you made.
Well, thank each of you for enduring until the end.
Yeah, I think you've got about half an hour of radio silence that you've got to edit out today. Yeah, the rest of it was really good. Yeah, and I'm sorry that you didn't manage to play Angela's recording, so maybe we can do that in the future. Well, maybe if I shared it from here, would that
would probably, work, because Neall was able to show his, and I wasn't sure, because we'd never done it before, had people share an audio. We didn't know how that would work, but now that's something that we could share in next week's, because it's it's short and to the point, and we'll still be encouraging people to do their own, help people see this is what's possible.
Yeah, it's all a learning curve, right?
Yes, and a great communications curve, because we still have people who contact me and they just want a reaction from a senior, a reaction from somebody from the group, rather than being a part of the pie. I attended an accessibility webinar earlier in the week, and they said all the major players were at the table, but the major players were the health people, the people that have different types of transportation services, but they wanted to know how older people feel about it, but they need to be at the table. It's like, and so that is one of the things that people will be, I think, reaching out to us as Powered by Age members, or you as emerging, peer leaders, to actually be at the table when they're talking at these accessibility, walkability cities, to be at that meeting rather than them just getting a soundbite from you. What do you think? No, this is be a part of designing. That was one of the goals too for the podcast, is to show that from all the background, the different educational areas, creative areas, experiences people have, that we are a reservoir for people to use when they're planning to make like Vancouver wants to be really an age-friendly city. So our voices should be at the various tables where policies are being made that make it an age-friendly city. So thank you all. We'll continue with seeing how we can make our program be something that does that.